Change your destinies with no continues. The tagline for the series following Kamen Rider Ghost. The tagline for a series airing as the 45th anniversary for the franchise. Despite that, the follow-up to Ghost was ironically pitched as a Kamen Rider that didn't look like a Kamen Rider.
瞳がないとインパクトも減るし、仮面ライダーに寄っちゃうし、あのビジュアルが一番最初に出てきた時は多分、それまでずっと
Some might think Heisei Riders already were a big departure from the 70s, even more so when Phase 2 Riders are brought up. Although, a show that goes on for decades has to evolve, which is exactly what Kamen Rider does, while mostly keeping certain design philosophies that make these heroes who they are. For example, all the Showa riders starting with Ichigo have marks under their eyes called tear lines. They're meant to symbolize the tragedy a rider carries when helping humanity. It may seem more like recent writers step away from the Showa philosophy, but the influences are still there, and most writers do still have a burden or tragedy to carry. It was even a theme brought up in the Kamen Rider Tyson movie. The year 2016 would bring us probably the most unconventional Kamen Rider ever. Personally, I think anything and anyone can bear the title as long as Toei says so. Though this writer definitely isn't anywhere near Ichigo. Producer Takehito Omori purposely wanted the design to be as far away from previous conventions, to the point where people would think this isn't a Kamen Rider in the first place. Mostly because this wasn't meant to appeal to older fans whatsoever. Instead, it would be aimed specifically to children. I know that might sound surprising, but Toei and Bandai know their audience. Kamen Rider can be for everyone, and even though the target audience are children, adults are the ones who buy the toys and collectors' merchandise. Kamen Riders of the past would usually include an element from Ichigo, such as the iconic tear lines and sometimes a scarf, or an element on the neck similar to a scarf. Take a look across the helmets of our main riders, and you'll see these cross over, even in those who didn't have the insect motif at all. Solid eye colors across the board. And then, pupils? On June 13th, 2016, the trademark for the next rider was made official, Kamen Rider Xade. Whether we find out names through leaks or officially, fans can get a good feel of the riders. Names like Genm could give an idea for what he is due to the kanji, but Xade stands out. The aid part is self-explanatory. Aid as in to give medical help, so that could mean the main rider is a doctor of some sort. But X? So a certain image got leaked. This is the most different Kamen Rider we've ever had visually. Yes, Heisei riders are different from Showa riders, but Xade here kind of doesn't look like a rider at all. Remember that producer Omori said this hero would step away from previous conventions.
で、ゲームっぽいなって思うのお願いしますって言い続けて、あれが出てきた時に、もちろん子供たちに向けてっていうのが一番大きいし、子供たちが蛍光色がその当時。
That includes giving Xade more defined eyes and an unconventional color scheme. Kamen Rider Decade may have been magenta, but Xade is pink. More importantly, there's a brand new motif here. We went from insects to video games. Producer Omori said the video game motif was pitched all the way back during Kamen Rider Drive's production, but that idea was shut down quickly. The Rider series is meant for a younger audience, so Toei's reasoning was that 5-year-olds didn't play video games enough to justify the gaming theme. Then Yokai Watch happened. While the franchise came to America with little fanfare, Yokai Watch was absolutely huge in Japan, to the point that Toei saw its success in a similar young audience, so video games were the next theme for Kamen Rider. Video games were the only motif at first. To me, the visuals look great, and yet, I know it's not for everyone. When Omori said this rider would look different, it's really the furthest we've ever been away from Kamen Rider. When it comes to a general opinion, I can only state what I saw from my personal timeline and research, so this may not apply to you. Personally, I've seen the Xade suit being called the ugliest suit ever, comparatively to opinions from other series. I can understand not liking it since, yeah, the colors are gaudy, the eyes are super off-putting, and, well, this just doesn't scream Kamen Rider. Those are all reasons I do like it though. It's different, but it's still a Kamen Rider. If you see Super Sentai suits in a lineup, then you can clearly tell they're meant to belong in the same franchise. The most different Sentai suits only have extra bits of armor or chest designs. Let's take Go Busters for example. It's different because it uses leather instead of spandex, but the visual design still fits the bright colors and simple lines you'd expect out of Sentai. Now let's compare Ichigo to, Hibiki with Ex-Aid. Take the main elements from Ichigo. Its bug motif, a scarf, giant eyes, and a simple body design with light armor. Hibiki doesn't appear to have any of these on the surface, but a lot of these aspects were kept in mind during its design phase, even before it was considered to be an official rider. The bug motif went to its iridescent skin compared to certain shiny bugs. The light armor is easy to grasp, but it's also a part in its quote-unquote scarf, since its armor stretches out over Hibiki's shoulder to compare. Same with the eyes. They don't appear on the surface, but there's subtle hints of it with edges around the front of the helmet. Now with Ex-Aid, there's no bug design, no scarf, but there are certainly giant eyes and light armor. Small, but important details that keep Ex-Aid as a Kamen Rider. Most importantly, I did say that some aspects go beyond the design. It's also with the story. The idea of a Kamen Rider comes from tragedy, carrying a burden as a lone soldier, such as being a protector of humanity. Kamen Riders are heroes, but they're not the only ones. Synthethon of each season's gimmick, it's not entirely wrong since these opening episodes do have to market the toys heavily. To me, the use of these toys hasn't been overbearing, especially when they're incorporated pretty well into the story. The gimmicks tend to be an integral piece to the plot, and they show our characters getting stronger. Ex-Aid might have been one of the best uses of these gimmicks, since they're based on leveling up, and our villain is shown to use the games for his master plan. And again, that doesn't seem much sillier than having Kamen Rider X fight off Aunt Capone, and this. Plus, these modern writers don't overload you with toys as much as some people would like you to think. A new gimmick or two is introduced in an episode, sometimes along with a new writer, and that's about it. Episode 2 of Ex-Aid introduces us to the best character in the show, the genius surgeon Hiiro Kagami, who's also Kamen Rider Brave. We also see our main villain. Characters refer to him as the Black Ex-Aid, but his proper name is Kamen Rider Genmu. If characters knew that name, then there wouldn't be any mystery as to who the user is. Alongside Genmu are two generals? Power Rangers terms has me call them generals since they're right below the main villain, so that's what I'll go with for now. They're the two best characters of the show, Graphite and Parade. And now, for another installment of Why is Marcosatsu pronouncing the name this way? Parado. If names have a certain intention, then I would pronounce it in that way, such as graphite clearly being named after the mineral, though in Japanese he's Gorafaito. Then the opposite for Genm, since Genmu is just straight up Japanese. Which brings me around to say that the intent for parado comes from the English word paradox. It's still a name, so I'm sticking with Parad, but parado is the best pronunciation. Now, if someone were named just Dan, then I'd give up. So the evil villain's plan is to spread the Bugster virus and collect the Gashat game cartridges to create something that we'll see later. Continuing on, Episode 3 has the most boring character in the show, former Doctor Taiga Hanaya, who is Kamen Rider Snipe.
Bam! Bam! Shooting! Dancing! I'm a Kamen Rider!
And to round out the riders of the first arc, we have medical examiner Kujo Kiriya, who is a bike known as Kamen Rider Laser. Each of the main riders had their own episode introduction, focusing solely on them, except for Genmu, since he's sprinkled here and there to laugh evilly then leave. We learn who these characters are pretty quickly, and they're all basically at each other's throats from the start. Hiiro looks to be emotionally unavailable and only cares about his work, not in the way that he cares about his patients as people. He just wants to get the work done, whether as a surgeon or as a writer.
Hey! Perfect! Yes!
He doesn't exactly want to work with Themu, they just happen to want the same end goal for different reasons. Though those reasons become more personal with the introduction of Taiga. Taiga used to be a radiologist, and he was one of the first to detect the bugster virus. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, he was unable to save a certain patient, and graphite was born. Taiga's license was revoked due to this incident. Kiriya was a medical examiner who had a friend contract the bugster virus. Kiriya knew that it was life-threatening, so he told that friend the truth, causing them to run out and get hit by traffic. From that day, Kiriya knew telling the truth could end up hurting people. Tying them all together, whether unintentional or not, is Asuna Kunino, better known as Papi Pipopopo. We find out towards the end of the arc that she's actually a bugster. You'd think that would be a big revelation, but the show just laughs it off, and it was hilarious. In fact, the first arc goes by a lot faster than you think, and it was done that way on purpose. Producer Takahashi said the first arc is intentionally left open to explore more of the story later, while we focus on Bandai's need of toys. That sounds so wrong out of context. It takes a lot for me to fully engage in the show, even Kamen Rider, and Heisei does a decent job, but there's one thing I just can't stand, and it's almost a completely necessary inclusion. Tokusatsu has its formulas, included within Kamen Rider and out. Those formulas aren't a bad thing, since modern shows can pull off tropes in an entertaining way, making them feel almost new. Yes, I love Kiriya Major, could you tell? One of the most common formulas are the Monster of the Week type episodes. You might know it from Power Rangers, where the main idea is that a monster shows up for that one episode and is beaten at the end, with a lesson or something in there. This, and formulas in general, aren't inherently bad. Some might see them as episodic and unnecessary, but they're one way to show character growth, and I've seen this formula combined with serialized storytelling. I've seen it used well, and I've seen it used in boring ways. There can be twists on Monsters of the Week, such as Zyuranger having a Child of the Week, where a random child is the focus of the episode. That was part of the boring ones. Heisei does include Monsters or Bugsters of the Week, as well as a Patient of the Week. This too is part of the boring ones. Don't get me wrong, the writing is good. The characterization, especially for our main writers, are good. It's the patients themselves that kinda drag it down for me. I don't find myself that invested in the patient's story when I know they're not gonna show up again, or at least not be integral to the overall story. However, there are some counterpoints to this. For one, the patient shows up for a limited amount of time, sometimes, so we do get our focus on our main writers. For two, the patients are where the medical drama aspects come from. I was waiting to bring this up, but it's very obvious that X8's secondary theme is a medical aspect. It's literally half of the name. Producer Omori talked about how he wanted to juxtapose the lighthearted video games with the tragedy of a medical drama. What better to have that drama than with a patient every week? And probably the most important and wholesome point, director Shojiro Nakazawa wanted to teach children that hospitals aren't bad places, and children shouldn't be scared of them. I brought this up before, but I really wanted to emphasize that this is such a neat idea. It's such a sweet thing for a director, or even Toei as a whole, to want to combine these ideas into one. It's honestly one of my favorite elements of X8. The heart. The soul. Patients are still boring though. Whenever a non-important character appears, I kinda zone out until someone else is on screen. However, that's just me. Formulas work for a reason, but not every formula works for everyone. This is an allegory for math. I hate math, but not as much as I love the storytelling in this first arc. Yeah, even though the patient stuff can get boring, everything else is just so much fun. Even though the arc is left open, the revelations and twists it does have are very powerful. They're one reason why I wanted newcomers to watch this without spoilers. As I already mentioned, their characters have a lot going for them, and they're at their best when more than two are on screen. but they're also just great on their own. Hiro's straightforwardness pairs well with Taiga's disdain for everything that isn't for him, or Kiriya's constant lies, and even Poppy's poppiness. Everyone constantly butts heads over the gashats while in the middle of whatever Kamen Rider Genmu is doing, but in the background, Don Kuroto is trying to help the writers by giving them video games. Can you guess who Kamen Rider Genmu is yet? Kiriya happened to be at the right place to see Genmu's identity.
Mighty Action X!
Henshin.
The others don't know yet, so Kiriya is playing with their expectations, until one certain fight where he finally reveals that Kamen Rider Genmu is actually Dan Kuroto. Huh? In a fantastic scene with great acting and storytelling, Genmu's identity was Parado, but that was a lie to hide the real identity. Genmu Corporation CEO, Dan Kuroto. Kiriya was made to look like a fool, and in his thoughts, he figured to go along with it for personal reasons. He already lost a friend, and the other writers believe him even less now, so he'll save face by saying it was a lie to take the gashats. This was all right after Kiriya asked for Emu's trust. The audience was shown Genmu's identity really early. It was all over the marketing, and you could have easily guessed in episode 2, and even then, their previous scene was masterful. Let's take a breather and talk about the gashat in the room, the toys themselves. I feel as though X8 was the most in-your-face about all the sounds and gimmicks. The toys were kept relatively small. Metal, switches, rings, icons, they're all small. Gashats are big, figuratively and literally. The sounds, the size of the toy, the playability, this gimmick made everything even bigger than before. And I love it. I'm not the biggest fan of the gimmick itself, mainly because these are supposed to be cartridges, but what kind of video game cartridges are these influenced by? Even the most different real-life cartridges aren't like this. That aside, the gashats go all out. There are these screens when a game is introduced, animated and everything. The names remind me of old-school naming conventions. Mighty Action X, Tattle Quest, Bang Bang Shooting, Bakso Bike. I don't even have to look up the names, they're just so memorable. Oh, and speaking of which, the jingles are so catchy, and that's the gamer driver. I have no idea how to feel about this. I love the absolute monstrous size of the toy, but I also really hate it. The overall design is just so empty. You have a couple of solid colors, and then the lever that says gamer driver in those neon colors that clash really badly with everything else, especially with certain writers. The toy itself doesn't have any electronics, all the sounds come from the gashats. The mirror on the inside is neat. I don't know, it's a cool driver, but also lame at the same time. What I can praise over and over is how much thought was put into the playability. The level 1 jingles are all the same across the board, with a couple exceptions of course, and the character select visuals are amazing. Level 2 activates when you have a single gashat inside the driver, then open the lever. Level 3 activates with 2 gashats inserted, then the jingles play one after another. Gashats. Later arcs do this too, but not to this extent. After our introduction of our riders, we have their level 3 forms. And then right after that, they're shown the Dragonite Hunter Gashats, which is Graphite's game. Okay, I just now realized that Graphite is supposed to be a dragon and not a rock? Then why is he called Graphite? Is it because of the suit colors? Is that what Graphite color is? Oh man, this is so weird. The thing about Dragonite Hunter is that its power is split into multiple gashats, but the power is too overwhelming. Emu knows Dragonite Hunter is a co-op game, but none of the writers want to help, so he devises a plan to get them to work together. Although Dragonite Hunter is shown to be a fighting game and not a co-op game, or maybe I'm just wrong on purpose so I could have you guys correct me in the comments for more interaction. After that, the writers use the gashats to their advantage, and Graphite is defeated. Yay. Oh wait, did Kiriya miss a cue there? I think the timing of his scene was off of putting on the armor. The main story bit to get out of this arc is that the director of the hospital, Hinata, was the one who operated on Emu all those years ago. That's a nice bit of backstory, but more importantly, the writers wonder if Emu ever got the gamer driver compatibility surgery like they did. We the audience note that Emu's eyes go red at times. Kamen Rider Information Specials, Poppy Pipopopo's Room, with special guest, Akira Shinomiya.
ポッピーさん
ポッピーです。
あ、早く見てるんですよ。
みんな。
ええ。あ、見てます。あ、いいです。あ、こっち。あっちにも。はい。
Bro, I love this stuff, and not just because it's Poppy. The silliness of it all is so cute, and it's just so much fun. And you know what? That's basically all I can say about this. It's cute, it's fun, watch it if you want.
赤ポピ紙、青ポピ紙、黄ポピ紙。ほら。
スラスラ。
ほら、やっぱポッピーだから言えるんだ。
わかりのあすはでございます。
もう何も教えないよ。
派手な T シャツを着てるからだ。
それは僕の趣味だから。これは僕のファッションなんです。何がおかしいんですか?
You might have noticed that I glossed over a lot in this arc, and only getting into the writers plus a couple of story elements. Being an open story kinda does that, even though I talked for a while. I'm only bringing this up because we're far into this video already, and if you're still watching, then firstly, thank you so much. And secondly, this is basically how the rest of the video is going to go. There will be a more serialized story for sure in the third arc, but this is generally how we're gonna do this for the video. I'll still cover the endings and such, plus the big plot points, but with as much content as this show has, I will have to skip over certain bits. Trust me, I've been saying for years leading up to this video that History of X8 would end up being 3 hours long, and despite me cutting out parts, I think it's still gonna end up being ginormous. Ironic as it sounds, since I've been talking for a while, the first arc does go by fairly quickly. I didn't bring up anything from episode 12 aside from the Poppy Buckster thing, since I'm saving it for the end of this section proper. For now, we're gonna stop at episode 10 for a very long but worthwhile detour. I did bring up one reason why this arc was fast earlier, but another reason is because head writer Yuya Takahashi wanted to catch up to a big event. A movie that I've been waiting to talk about for years. Heisei Generations. Genmu Corporation is attacked by a group of people who know of Dan Kuroto. The group unleashes a virus on the city.
It's good to be back! Leave this to me like you usually do!
But he's not the only one. To celebrate Kamen Rider's 45th anniversary, we have a crossover with several previous characters to bring us Kamen Rider Heisei Generations, Dr. Pac-Man vs. X8 and Ghost with Legend Riders. Heisei Generations is a spiritual successor to the Movie War series, changing its formula to go along with the anniversary. And if you know Bandai, then you know of Bandai Namco and their library of games, or you just know Pac-Man. So many ideas, so little time. Zaizen's gang had a secret member with them, but we know who this person is.
I believe I could be of some assistance.
Sakura dies and gets revived a minute later. We get a quick look of our Legend Riders.
Yes! Poppy wins again! Poppy always wins!
And in the after credits, it's my favorite Kamen Rider movie ever. I have such minor nitpicks that they're not even worth bringing up, and the patient of the week is barely here, so he's no bother to me. That's it for the negatives. Everything else goes from a scale of good, and of course, Emu and Alan. All the writers have these big fight scenes directed by Sakamoto, and I'd say this movie has some of the best action in all of Tokusatsu. The action! Heisei Generations is my favorite Kamen Rider movie of all time.
Yeah, I can't exactly fight without Mr. Belt.
Stop it!
And then why don't you come down here and fight the wizard? Oh god, I've made a huge mistake.
But first, we have some side content to get to. Many of the side content in Rider get these subtitles to bundle them together. In Drive, they were called Type So-and-so, like Type Tokujo, Type Lupin, and so on. Here they're called X8 Tricks, which seems like a cute name in English, but in Japanese, they're called Urawaza. Urawaza would literally translate to secret trick, hence X8 tricks, popularized in the late 60s and 70s, evolving to something more like optimizing your way of life. It then became a term for gamers to optimize their gaming strategies. Nowadays, you might have heard of the term dandori, which is a similar idea, optimizing your lifestyle, whether it's with money or your health. Save a bit of time every morning by having some clothes ready by your bed. Prep your food for the next day. Dandori, urawaza, kimewaza? See, it all connects back to X8, even if loosely, but also directly since I mentioned it was a term for gamers too. I think X8 urawaza could mean that these specials optimize time for Toei by filling in holes later that, while not necessary to the main show, could add a bit more explanation to what's going on, or give us some more screen time for characters that need it. Our first tricks are virtual operations, all uploaded to Toei's YouTube channel. They're mainly just henshin lessons with our characters teaching the viewers how they transform. Although, these also have passing mentions of things you might have not thought about. Kuroto tells Poppy to gather data from Emu, which becomes a small adventure of him finding out more about the other writers. For example, how does Taiga get into CR? He says he used to be a doctor there, so he still remembers the password. Taiga mentions that he knows that Kuroto's proto-gashats were what began something called Zero Day. Whoa, that's kind of a big exposition drop, which I would normally be upset about since it's not in the main show, but, as I've been saying, these are only complementary to the main story, and we do get this explanation later when the plot needs it to. In the beginning, we didn't need to know this, so it's cool that we have a name drop in the side content, almost like a small nugget for watching them. Even more exposition between Hiiro and Kuroto, when Kuroto says Proto Mighty Action X is more or less as strong as Emu's Mighty Action X. Plus, the Proto version was stolen on Zero Day. This is way more than I was expecting out of side content, but hey, I really like this. And the best part, they're all short. There are 5 episodes that you can watch in less than an hour. Virtual Operations is a cute time if you want just a little bit more X8 content, but they're easily missable and you can enjoy the show without them. As always with History and Legacy of Kamen Rider, I go through content usually by story order, though it really depends on the type of content. Sometimes production order makes more sense, and other times, like with Virtual Operations, they're kind of insignificant, so I just drop them generally where I see fit. Virtual Operations takes place after each couple of episodes in the main show, but now we're going by story order. Kinda. Next trick is a follow-up called Kamen Rider X8 Tricks, Kamen Rider Genmu. This one is basically another confrontation with bugsters, but this time, Emo uses the power of Legend Riders. You might immediately notice how the jingles are reused from previous gashats, just with different lyrics. At first, I was a bit disappointed by it, but I also understand. With as big as Bandai are, Rider is still on strict deadlines, so why not just reuse what you have? Plus, they're still super catchy. The fights start to escalate, as Kamen Rider Genmu uses his own Legend Rider gashats. One thing I've been wanting to bring up is that much like other gashats, these Legend Rider ones have names that go along with a fun game theme. King of Poker Blade, Let's Go Ichigo, Taiko Master Hibiki, Doki Doki Makai Castle Kiva, Magic the Wizard. I have fun just saying them. Kuroto gathered data from the other writers in Heisei Generations to combine them with their real-life Kamen Rider Ganba Rising arcade game. And that leaves me with a lot more questions, but never mind. So with a new Ganba Rising gashat, Legend Riders are summoned to fight Emu. Oh man, that Kamen Rider double suit has seen better days. And Dr. Pac-Man? But Zaizen was defeated, so who could this be? Dr. Pac-Man hands Emu some interesting new gashats. As I mentioned probably an hour ago now, oh my gosh, it's been an hour? Since Bandai worked with Toei, Bandai Namco figured it would be a good idea to have some of their games included with this game-themed writer. Emu, Hiiro, and Taiga use the power of sponsorships to use their respective games: Pac-Man's Pac Adventure, Family Stadium's Famista, and Xevious from Xevious. Wait, am I having a Mandela effect here? I know of Gradius, but oh no, they're two different games. Never mind. These gashots have brand new jingles to go with their reused suits. Pac Adventure is a recolor Gekitoto robots, but now with 2 arms. I never minded recolors, even more so when it's during a short special. Plus, it looks pretty nice, especially Famista. I love that cute hat. Gashots are still weird to me, but I just had to have this Pac Adventure one. This is one of my favorite toys ever, just because it has Pac-Man on it, and his Kamen Rider. Isn't that so cute? And now for the final battle in this Tricks.
ゲームクリアって出た？
え、そういえばまだ。
Emu faces against Kamen Rider Hibiki. So Dr. Pac-Man hands him the Taiko no Tatsujin Gashat. Do I even need to explain how amazing this is? Dude, I love Taiko. I played it non-stop on Switch, and I wish I could find a working arcade version of it in the US. I need this Gashat so bad, but it's so expensive and hard to find. I need this one. It's so cool. I love Taiko. Where's Don-chan? Don-chan's right there. He's so cute. Okay, anyway. Hibiki is defeated at his own game, and Dr. Pac-Man turns out to be working with Genmu. They were both collecting data on all the games to fulfill Kuroto's master plan. Once inside their secret base, Dr. Pac-Man unmasks himself, and it's Parado. I don't think Tricks Genm has any crazy exposition, nor is it supposed to have big explanation since not even an evil master plan was said, but it's a lot of fun. This might be one of my favorite side specials in X8, purely by the Taiko Gashat, but everything else is fun too. Check it out if you like, though we're putting this in the watch if you want pile. Okay, with that big detour out of the way, how about did you know Kamen Rider X8 has video games? Most of them are arcade games, Gun Rising included, and also mobile games, but I won't really be talking about those. The one I do want to bring up is All Kamen Rider Rider Revolution for the Nintendo 3DS. There were a couple of All Rider Generation games before this, and those were a lot of, they were fun. They were a lot of fun. While I'm not that into the beat-em-up genre, I still get a kick out of playing as my favorite riders and using their finishers, though I'm not into Bad Ride Wars and I can't tell you why. Maybe it's just a little boring. But anyway, Rider Revolution is much like the other two. Very little story with a lot of fun gameplay, and now on a slightly bigger screen. And of course, in case you thought otherwise for some reason, these games are non-canon. I bring that up because there are some story elements that connect to other seasons, but please don't try to connect just to the main show, or else I'll Rider kick you personally. I wonder how many comments already brought up the Shin Kamen Rider game that has nothing to do with this. But the best part about this game is that it came with the Premium Super Deluxe Awesome Poggers Edition that came with a Kamen Rider Ghost Gashat. But for reals, I know you've all been waiting for this. Mighty Action X was made into a real-life game for those who bought All Rider Revolution. It was a very short platformer where you played as Mighty and fight against the Bugsters. Not really sure what else I can say about it, but the game is cute and definitely a pleasant surprise. Emu's internship is almost done, and it's about to be Christmas! The salty Bugster returns in time for some holiday cheer, along with Kamen Rider Genmu. Now that the riders can use Dragonite Hunter properly, they defeat Genmu and his gauge hits 0, but he uses his bug visor to create a game called Dangerous Zombie. He also finally reveals himself to the riders. Kamen Rider Genmu is Dan Kuroto. His plan was to create the ultimate game, even if it cost him his life. Kuroto escapes into his base and puts Dangerous Zombie into an empty gashat, saying he was going to die anyway due to his overuse of Proto Mighty Action X. Speaking of Kuroto, Kiriya is still trying to find out more about him, so he goes to prison to meet Dan Kuroto's father, Dan Masamune. That seemed like it became a 180 out of nowhere, but we're getting so close to the climactic battle between Riders and Dan Kuroto. His plan seemed to have worked, and the Doctor Riders aren't sure of what to do next. Sure, they still have to fight the Bugsters, but what's the current cost? Have they been following the wrong leads? Is everything going to be okay? Who cares? It's Christmas!
Ho ho ho! You're all getting cold this year.
Merry Christmas!
This is the part where Poppy reveals she's a Bugster, but Emu and Hiiro already knew that. Salty Bugster is defeated, and Parado takes him hostage for a new game. Kiriya calls up the writers asking to meet with all of them, since he has some important information to share.
And why should we trust you?
I'm a bike.
Damn, he makes a good point. Can I help you?
What up, f***o?
Before anyone arrives, Kuroto meets with Kiriya first. They say 16 years ago, Kuroto had a confrontation with Emu. In exchange to keep this information secret, Kuroto offers Kiriya a brand new toy.
Dangerous zombie! Dangerous zombie!
Henshin.
And then Kiriya dies. Don't forget to pick up your Kucho Kiriya shirt and Boxo Bike Gashat in time for the holidays.
Kamen Rider Exedo! この後スタート!